Thank you for joining us for Biology 102. Today we're starting Chapter 21. This is going to be on primates and human evolution. Today we're going to start out with our scientists that we always start out with when we first start a new section. It's going to be Clarence Ray Carpenter. He was an American primatologist who was born in 1905 and died in 1975. He earned his bachelor's degree in 1928 and a master's degree in 1929 from Duke University, which is in North Carolina. He also got his doctorate from Stanford University in 1931. He was known for implementing new field primatology techniques, which would perform the first naturalistic study of howler monkeys in the Barra Colorado Islands in Panama. And that was from 1931 to 1933 that he did his research. He had field work in Thailand in 1937, which involved the first use of videotaping and sound recording machines to capture the naturalistic behaviors and social interactions of gibbons. He established the Cayo Santiago Field Station on Santiago Island in Puerto Rico in 1938 to 1940 to conduct controlled interventionist studies of the natural behavior of the rhesus macaques. Professor of Physiology and Anthropology at Pennsylvania State University in 1940 to 1970 and University of Georgia from 1970 to 1974. He was an advisory at Emory University's Natural Primate Research Center from 1967 to 1975. A new subspecies of white-handed gibbon is going to be discovered in Thailand in 1975 and is going to be named in Carpenter's honor. So with primates, the origin of primates is going to be a division that's specific to over 500 species of lemurs, lorises, bush babies, tarsiers, monkeys, apes, and humans. And it's going to be proposed by Carolus Linnaeus in 1758 and directly implied a relationship among the mammalian groups. Charles Darwin is going to be credited for hypothesizing the common ancestor between humans and apes with a publication that he has, The Descent of Man, in 1871. Now this is going to be after he's already caused a large controversy with his On the Origin of Species, which he published in 1859. So with evolution, they're going to believe that they have evolved at the beginning of the Cenozoic period, which is going to be around 65 million years ago, and the Purgatorius, a small primate-like insectivore. And so that's what you see here. So he crawls around and he looks for insects to eat. The divergence of the first true primates is going to begin to appear in fossil records around 55 million years ago, as squirrel-like animals adapt to climbing trees with grasping hands and feet. Warmer global climates and a lack of competition is going to favor the evolution of early primates between 65 to 35 million years ago. Around 35 million years ago, we're going to have a global climate which begins to progressively cool again. This is going to cause the extinction of these early primates and consequent a divergence of extinct primates. These extinct primates are going to include the prosimians, the aye-ayes, bush babies, potos, lorises, and the lemurs. And so here you can see some examples below of some of these animals that we still have today, thank goodness. Anthropoid lineages are going to start to diverge from primitive prosimians and tarsiers about 55 million years ago. We're also going to have New World monkeys of South America, like the tamarins, the spider monkeys, and howler monkeys, and the Old World monkeys of Africa and Asia, those such as the baboons, the macaques, the capuchin monkeys. These are going to divulge or start to diverge about 35 million years ago. We have apes come about 25 million years ago, and then they're going to give rise to gibbons about 17 million years ago. We have the orangutan starting to appear 13 million years ago, along with the gorillas at 7 million years, chimpanzees at 6, and then eventually humans at around 6 million years ago. Evolution of the upright position and bipedalism from locomotion is going to involve two legs, so that's what bipedalism means. So bi, two, ped is going to be foot, so that's how you put those two together. And so later, arthropod lineages are going to result from global climate change and the alteration of landscape. It's going to promote a shift from arboreal, which is going to be in the trees, to more terrestrial, which is going to be on land. And that's where they're going to locate and gather their food. So that's going to be the reason they're going to go from the trees and come down into the land or terrestrial areas. Next, we see some characteristics start to develop that's going to be very important. We're going to have grasping hands and feet with mobile limbs. So these grasping hands and feet are going to enable them to be efficient, dexterous, and rapid moving through the trees. An opposable thumb is also going to be very important. It's going to come in and it's going to help to distinguish by touching the tip of the remaining 4 fingers. This is going to be allowed to permit more precise and powerful grips. It gives limber shoulder and hip joint enhancements that we're going to see starting to develop. That gives them directional mobility of limbs that support climbing, swinging, and moving from branch to branch to reach food. So that's how it's going to start out in the arboreal areas. Also, the eye is going to change. So we end up with binocular and color vision. The adaptation is going to be directed through a close set of forward-facing eyes. This is going to enable primates to focus on objects from different angles. It's also going to broaden their field of view and enhance the depth perception. Thus, this does increase their visual acuity as they move through the forest. Color vision is also going to be an adaptation that's associated with specialized photoreceptor cells. You're going to have cone cells and rod cells within the eye. So some of those are going to pick up on different distinctions of different shades of gray. They're going to make up a lot of your peripheral vision from the sides. And then with the color receptors, they're actually going to give you color and differentiate different objects. So these cells are going to be found in the retina, which is going to be a layer that's going to be on the back of the inner portion of the eye. And so they can detect low light, color, and sharpen minute details of an image. A large complex brain is also going to start to come about and be developed. So the evolution of this large complex brain is going to be supported by the social brain hypothesis, which is going to suggest a large brain in primates was a result of an increase of cognitive demand that's required to maintain and manage the intense social relationships and groups as they start to increase in size. So for classification of these primates, first we discussed how it was going to be identified by Linnaeus in 1758. So he is the first one that proposed primates, which include the lemur, simia, and homo. Discontent over the inclusion of humans with these primates is going to lead to earlier modifications of division and separation from the primates. So the distinct order for humans and introduction to Persimmon. So we're going to have some other scientists come in. We have Blumenbach, which is going to come in at 1795. We have Ilger, which is going to come in and call it erecta in 1811, and also introduce the Persimmons. And then we have Cuvier, which is going to come in again with the Bemani in 1817. So with these classifications, we're going to have other significant changes to the division through the 19th century. We're going to have St. Hilaire in 1812, which is going to introduce the Platyrrhina. That's the New World monkeys, and the Caudarini, which are going to be the Old World monkeys, the apes, and the humans. Gray in 1825 is going to establish the Hominidae, or hominids as we call them now, for humans and apes. Swanson in 1835 didn't recognize man as a zoological specimen as a classification system. He thought that humans were going to be above all of this classification. St. George Navarre in 1864 is going to establish what we call the Lemuridia for lemurs and the Arthropodia for monkeys, apes, and humans. Modifications during the 20th century are going to occur with Gregory in 1915, where he proposes 3 subdivisions. He's going to put the lemurs together, the lorises, and then the tarsiers. Delineated monkeys and apes into 2 distinct divisions, and they're all going to go under Arthropodia. Then we're going to have Simpson in 1945, which is going to come in and look at the Persimmon arrangement as Gregory did, and he's going to introduce a New World monkey order. He's going to introduce an Old World monkey order, and then he's going to put apes and humans in the hominida group together to replace the other groups. More modifications are going to be made during the 20th century. We have classified primates now into two subgroups. We have Strepsirrhini, which are going to be primates with wet noses. These are lemurs, bush babies, podos, and lorises. And we have the Haplorrhini, which are going to be primates with dry noses. These are going to be your tarsiers and your anthropoids. Anthropoida was abandoned for the use of Ernest Haeckel's simiforms, and that's going to help to represent the monkeys, the apes, and the humans. So here you can see how these lineages are going to start. So we have the ancestral primate. We're going to see how they divide into our two subgroups that we just discussed. So we have the Haplorrhini and we have the Strepsirrhini, which are going to develop. And then you see how these are going to lead directly over to the lorises and the lemurs. And then we divide into another subgroup. One of them leads to the tarsiers. And then we'll divide again into a subgroup, which is going to lead to the Platyrrhini, and then so forth. Eventually, we're going to end up on the top of the list, amazing how that happens, being humans, with the Hominidae, and that's going to end up with the humans on top and also a subdivision of the chimpanzees. So, diversity within the primates. We're going to have over 500 extant species. That means, remember, if it's extant, it's still living, with most are going to be found in tropical regions of South America, Africa, and Asia. They possess traits that are adapted to arboreal life and demonstrate sociality and slow reproductive function. So arboreal life, remember, means that they live in trees. Sociality means that they live in social groups and have different hierarchies or different arrangements among those social groups, like leaders and those who do certain things within the community. And slow reproductive function would be example of sexual maturity. Gestation length, for example, when they have a fertilized embryo, it does take a while for that embryo to develop, such as in humans, it takes around 9 to 10 months. And so here, we're also going to have birth of a single infant in most cases. Every now and then you do end up with twins or even triplets, but it's not going to be a common thing. And we have long intervals between consecutive births. So it's going to be with the prosimians, we're going to have over 500 species of lemurs, bush babies, podos, aais, and lorises. They're going to be native to tropical forests of Africa and South Asia. With the lemurs, they're going to be confined to the island of Madagascar. They're recognized as small nocturnal arboreal primates with simple brains, sharp claws, large eyes, long snouts, and wet noses. Currently, they're listed as vulnerable or critically endangered. Of course, you see the little guy over to the right-hand side. If you watch some TV shows, I'm not sure if it's still on, they had like Zoboomafoo, which had the lemur that would leap around. So I know my children really enjoyed watching that. Now the tarsiers. They're going to include about 20 species. They're found in tropical forests of South Asia. They're nocturnal, and you can tell that by looking at the eyes. I think these are some of the cutest. Because of their eyes and their expressions that they have on their face. Of course, they live in the trees, so they're arboreal, and they're going to be very small with compact bodies. They're going to have a flat face with those large eyes that you see, slender fingers and toes with sharp claws, and they have a carnivorous diet, which means that they eat meat. Currently, these are going to be threatened by human activities such as habitat loss. The New World monkeys are going to include around 175 species of marmosets, tamarins, squirrel monkeys, howler monkeys, spider monkeys, night monkeys, and saki monkeys. They're small to medium-sized, arboreal, diurnal primates, which is going to be endemic to the tropical regions of Mexico, Central, and South America. Distinguishing characteristics are going to include their large brains, broad noses with outward-facing nostrils, fingers and toes that end in a flat claw-like nail. They're going to have small, non-opposable thumbs, long, prehensile, semi-prehensile, or non-prehensile tails, and they have a diet that consists of insects, small vertebrates, fruits, leaves, and flowers. Habitat destruction is going to be a major concern with these because we are destroying their habitat very quickly, which is going to unfortunately lead to less and less numbers of these. And so here's some of your New World monkeys that you see. The old world monkeys are going to include about 160 species of baboons, and the colobus monkeys. They're going to be found in tropical or mountainous regions of Africa and Asia. These also are going to be arboreal primates, so they're found in the trees. They're recognized by their large size, narrow noses with downward-facing nostrils, fingers and toes that end in flat nails. They have opposable thumbs, long, non-prehensile tails, and diverse diets of leaves, fruits, seeds, bird eggs, and grass roots. Currently, they're going to be listed as endangered or critically endangered species. And here's some examples of the Old World monkeys. Next, we go into the apes. The apes are going to be categorized by their large, complex brains, long arms and short legs, short arms and long legs, for example with humans, fingers and toes with flat nails. We have opposable thumbs, absent tail, or a reduced, which is going to be reduced to a coccyx. That's going to be the last bone that we're going to find right below the sacrum. The division is going to consist of gibbons, orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, and humans. With the gibbons, there's going to be about 20 species of these. They're found in tropical forests of Southeast Asia. They're distinguished as small, lightweight, arboreal species with long arms and legs that provide abort agility. So that means that they're able to swing and climb through the trees very easily. Their diet's going to include mostly fruits with addition of leaves and arthropods. Currently, they're the most threatened primate globally. The orangutans are going to be next. There's about 3 species that are going to be found in rainforest of Greater Sunda Islands in Sumatra or Borneo in Southeast Asia. Their distinguishing features are going to be those that are arboreal primates with thin, shaggy hair that's going to be slightly red-orange to brown in color. They have long, flexible arms, short, bowed legs, and variable diets of fruit, flowers, leaves, insects, and actually other primates. Currently, they're going to be listed as critically endangered. Next, we have our gorillas. There's going to be 2 recognized species of gorillas that are found in tropical lowlands and mountainous regions of Africa. They're large, mostly terrestrial primates that are distinguished by their broad chest, long, muscular arms, relatively short legs, thick black to brown-gray hair, and extreme size, sexual dimorphism, use of knuckle walking, and bipedalism to move. They have a herbaceous diet of fruit, seeds, and leaves, and will supplement it with insects. Currently, they are going to be also listed as endangered. Chimpanzees are going to be represented by 2 species native to Africa. Smaller, less broad primate than gorillas that are going to feature long arms, short legs, thick black to brown colored hair, and movement by knuckle walking or bipedalism. They're going to have a diet of fruit, leaves, seeds, flowers, insects, birds, and other primates. Currently, they're going to be listed as endangered. Next, we go to us, the humans. We're identified by a single species. We're the largest and most ubiquitous primate on Earth. We share many primate features, including mobile limbs, fingers and toes with flat nails, opposable thumbs, forward-facing eyes, and absent tail. Yet, the complex, sophisticated brain is going to be distinctively characteristic of this group. So lots of times when people talk about primates, they mostly think of these monkeys. They don't really consider humans, or a lot of people I've talked to don't consider humans to be in the primate category. So there's some benefits and impacts of these non-human primates. There's close to 70% of non-human primates that are actually under the threat of extinction at this time, with nearly 95% experiencing declining populations due to habitat loss and fragmentation related to anthropologic activities, and in addition to hunting, trapping, and pollution and disease. There's an alarming rate of loss that's concerning to scientists because of their critical roles that they play. Ecological roles they're going to play in our environment are going to be that they positively influence the structure of forest communities as fruit and seed disperses and as pollinators. They will disrupt plant physiology through consumption of fruits, seeds, and flowers. Their medical role, Since 1923, non-human primates have been used as surrogates in organized biomedical research. This has provided scientists with a better understanding of the origin, evolution, transmission, detection, treatment, and prevention of human disease and numerous diseases, including polio, cancer, and AIDS. Now, a lot of people are upset most of the time, understandably, about using these primates as test subjects. But it's very important that we use an animal that's going to be close to the biological system of a human in order to test to see how these different medications that we may be trying to use or how disease transmission actually occurs. It's currently considered unethical to do these tests on humans. Now, we do have some groups that will volunteer or go into a study, but usually those studies aren't actually opened up to humans until after it's been done or studied on primates first, or the monkeys first. Lots of times they use the rhesus monkey because that one's going to be one of the most closely resembling our system, so it's most closely related to us, and that's where we usually see the outcomes that are going to be most similar to that which is going to be in a human. Now, traditional beliefs of cultural societies. These are going to have played a centralized role in the stories, mythology, and religious beliefs of many local and regional cultures for thousands of years. Example, we have Sun Wukong, or the Monkey King, in Chinese mythology. We have Sano, a central deity of Buddhism. We have the monkey god Hunaman, which is going to be one of the most popular and worshipped gods in the Hindu religion. So here you see some of these down towards the left-hand side of the screen. So despite their often celebrated role in cultural societies, the risk of crop damage by non-human primates has intensified their conflict with humans, prompting withdrawal of sentiment and support for conservation efforts by many local communities. We have encroached in on their area. So really what's happened is they don't have a lot of room to move around. They are looking for food. They are looking to take care of, support themselves and their families. And so this is where humans and these monkeys kind of come together and they clash. So with human evolution, we're going to have ideas related to the applicability of evolution throughout the origin of humans, beginning in around 1860 with the publication of Huxley, Lyell, and Haeckel's book. Now, the application of evolutionary themes to humans is going to include natural selection and common ancestry. This is first going to be presented by Charles Darwin in 1871's publication, The Descent of Man. Now, Darwin's going to propose an African origin of humans from an ape-like progenitor. However, he did lack the fossil evidence to support his hypothesis at the time of publication. Now, as we go back further and we start to find more fossils, we are starting to be able to put together a better lineage. So since 1871, two pieces of evidence supported Darwin's idea of common ancestry between apes and humans and have helped scientists trace early human history. First, we have the accumulation of human fossils from Africa. Second, we have comparative biochemical and cytological analysis. So CYT, C-Y-T-E, that means cell, and so they're looking at cell analysis. So these have revealed a close evolutionary relationship between humans and chimpanzees through genomes, which are going to be nearly 99% identical. Humans and chimpanzees are going to have been evolving separately since two lineages diverged from each other, which had a shared common ancestor that was approximately 6 million years ago. And so that's at the point where they start to diverge and go in separate directions. Augmented evidence needed by scientists to properly trace the evolutionary histories of human origins using fossils. So now we're moving into paleoanthropology. So that's going to be the study of the origin and evolutionary history of humans, or hominids. Since the beginning in 1856, paleoanthropology has revealed differentiating features between apes, early humans, and the modern-day human. Examples: less robust jaws, smaller canines, increased skull capacity for higher developed brains, a distinct skeletal feature that's adaptive for bipedalism, such as the orientation of the foramen magnum. That's going to be a hole where your spinal cord is going to come out, so you have your brainstem and spinal cord. And so That's going to be that opening for the spinal cord to come out and to start to emerge to go down the spine. It's going to be located underneath the skull instead of through the rear of the skull, as found in chimpanzees. Also, we have S-curved vertebrae. That's going to form that vertebral column. It's going to start out kind of C-shaped. And so with that C-shape, that's what it is when humans are first born. But as we start with bipedalism, the first thing that we do is that we start to hold our head up within about 3, 4, 5 months. That's going to create the first curve, which is going to be in the neck. So that's called a secondary curvature. Then we start to walk around a year. And that's going to create the lower curve, which is going to be that lumbar curve. So we get a cervical curve in our back of our neck, and we get a lumbar curve at the bottom of our back. And so that's going to give us our S-shaped curve of our spine. Also, we're going to have a broader pelvic bone and longer, larger leg bones with knee joints that are modified to support more body weight. Fossil records are going to be available to paleoanthropologists that considered scarce, speculative, and even controversial when looking through these different fossils. And so here's an example of the two together. So we have our primate ancestors, or our primates that we're developing along with, over on the left-hand side. And you can see how that foramen magnum is going to come out more of the occipital region, whereas with us, it's going to come out from underneath to create that base of the skull. Sahelanthropus coccinensis is going to be emerging around 7.2 to 6.8 million years ago. We first discovered the fossil records of these in 2001 in Africa's deserts that are going to be located in northern Chad. They were believed to be one of the earliest ancestral lineages in evolutionary history to man. Fossils have been dated to around the time of human and chimpanzee lineages where they diverge from a shared common ancestor. These fossils are going to reveal several anatomical features that resemble both apes and humans, which include cranial capacity that is approximate to that of an extinct chimpanzee that was around 400 cubic centimeters. Prominent brow ridges, a foramen magnum that's consistent with the habitual bipedalism, and smaller teeth, so it has canines and incisors with thick enamel, kind of like the modern human teeth. Then we have the species Ornithogenesis, which are going to appear in fossil records from 6 to 5.7 million years ago. They were discovered in the Tugen Hills of central Kenya in about the year 2000. Fossil remains are going to include jaw fragments that exhibit a mixture of distinct teeth, such as large, robust incisors, large, pointed canines, ape-like premolars, and small molars with thick enamel. They're going to have upper limb bones, providing evidence of arboreal behavior, so they were in the trees, and lower limb bones, which demonstrate morphological features that are adapted to bipedalism. Ardipithecus cadava are going to appear 5.8 to 5.5 million years ago. They were first discovered in 1997 in Ethiopia's Middle Awash region, along with additional fossils that were recovered in the region in around 2002. The fossils revealed dental morphology like large triangular canines, clearly distinct from those of other human fossils. They have fragments of jaws and upper limb bones like the forearm, fingers, and clavicle, and highly disputed toe bones, which are going to suggest bipedalism. Ardipithecus ramidus is going to appear about 4.5 to 4.3 million years ago. They're going to be described as one of the earliest well-known hominin ancestors. They were discovered in Middle Awash in the area of Ethiopia in the 1990s, but they did not receive recognition as a new ancestor to the human phylogenetic tree until 2009. Fossil remains are going to include skull fragments suggestive of a small brain comparable to the size of the extant female chimpanzee, around 300 to 350 cubic centimeters. They're going to have teeth that demonstrate an omnivorous diet, which means that they're going to eat both plants and meat. They have upper and lower limbs, which are going to exhibit anatomical adaptations for behavior, such as tree climbing and bipedalism. Australopithecus anamensis is going to appear about 4.2 to 3.9 million years ago. They're going to represent an intermediate species between the Ramidus and other Arthropicene species. The first fossils are going to be discovered in Kanapoi in northern Kenya in 1965, with more definitive fossils such as teeth, bone fragments, and lower jaws, which were recovered in a site in 1995. Additional fossils are going to be discovered throughout Kenya and Ethiopia and have revealed a mixture of ape-like and human features evident in the skull, upper limbs like the forearm, hand, and fingers, which are going to demonstrate probable boral behavior and anatomical advancements in the structure of the lower limbs like the femur, knee, and tibia. That's going to help to facilitate bipedalism. Next, we have Australopithecus afarensis. This is going to appear between 3.9 to 3 million years ago. They're considered the most famous hominin fossil, with the discovery of a partial female skeleton in 1974 named Lucy. The fossil is going to demonstrate a short hominin species with ape-like facial characteristics, slightly larger brain than a chimpanzee, and anatomical structures that are adapted to a boral life, such as flexible shoulders, long, strong upper limbs, and a hook-like finger. Analysis of Lucy's skeleton is going to reveal numerous fractures suggesting her death was a result of ground impact from a long fall from a tree. First evidence of bipedalism is going to be documented here. We have distinct footprints that were uncovered in hardened volcanic ash in the Latoli, Tanzania area, nearly complete skeleton of a female child in Dikika, Ethiopia, which is going to feature a complete cervical and thoracic vertebral column. Researchers suggest it's going to be reflective of a structural configuration of the achievement of bipedalism. Next, we have Australopithecus africanus, which is going to appear 3.3 to 2.1 million years ago. The first fossils are going to represent species with skull of a child that was discovered in the Tongue, South Africa in 1924. Additional fossils are going to reveal similar anatomical structures with that of A. africanus. It's going to have ape-like, flexible shoulders, long upper limbs, and curved fingers that are adapted for climbing trees. Human-like features like a pelvis, femur, and foot bones that indicate bipedalism. Distinguishing features that are going to include slightly larger, gracile or slender bodies, human-like skull protecting a large brain, human-like jaw, and smaller teeth that are modified for her herbivorous diet that consists of fruit, plants, seeds, and roots. Next, we have the Paranthropus robustus, which is going to appear 2.5 to 1.2 million years ago. The first fossil was discovered in Swartkrans, South Africa in 1938, and is believed to have been a descendant of A. africanus, given the comparable body size. Characterized by its massive skull with an estimated cranial capacity of approximately about 530 cubic centimeters, prominent skull crests that are going to be supported with well-developed chewing muscles, large brow ridges, and cheekbones, a heavy jaw that consists of large premolars and molars. These are going to be used to crush and grind through fibrous plant materials such as nuts, seeds, and roots. Next, we have Australopithecus garhi. These are going to appear 2.5 million years ago. The skeletal remains are going to be discovered in the 1990s in Middle Awash, Ethiopia, and the discovery is going to help scientists fill an obscure gap in the hominin fossil record between 3.0 and 2.0 million years ago, so between 3 and 2 million years. The analysis of fossils is going to reveal a cranial capacity of about 450 cubic centimeters, primitive ape-like upper limbs and fingers, and femoral elongation, which is going to be characterized by significant advancement in bipedalism in hominins. Mammalian bones with distinct cut marks are going to be found alongside fossils that indicate primitive stone tools that they're going to use. Next, we have Paranthropus boise. That's going to appear 2.3 to 1.2 million years ago. They represent the last Australopithecine in the evolutionary history of humans. They were discovered in Oldove Gorge in North Tanzania in 1959. The fossils reveal a massive skull with a cranial capacity of around 450 to 550 cc's. A prominent skull crest, defined brow ridge, wide cheekbones, and a strong jaw support premolars and molars with thick enamel. In addition to powerful built ape-like upper body with strong forearms, believed to have complemented the occasional arboreal behavior with terrestrial bipedalism. Next, we have Homo habilis. So now we're getting into the Homo genus. So now we've reached the genus that modern humans are going to be in. So Homo fossils. So Homo habilis is going to appear 2.4 to 1.4 million years ago. They were discovered in the early 1960s in the Oldove Gorge in Tanzania. It represents the earliest known members of the Homo genus. Fossils are going to be characteristic to include an enlarged skull with an estimated cranial capacity of around 500 to 800 cc's, less protruding ape-like facial features, smaller teeth adapted for a broader omnivorous diet, and longer human-like femur, permitting more erect bipedalism. Evidence suggests considerable advancements in making and the use of simple stone tools. Homo erectus, this is the one that most of us hear about a lot or have known about or learned about in school. These appeared 1.9 million years ago to around 110,000 years ago. They were believed to have been descendants of the Homo habilis and coexisted alongside the other species. So initial discoveries could be made in 1891 on the island of Java in Indonesia that suggest Homo erectus was one of the earliest hominins to travel outside of Africa. The accumulation of additional Homo erectus fossils across the region in Southeast Asia and Europe further support their widespread geographic dispersion. Fossils will reveal the loss of arboreal adaptations with presence of shorter upper limbs and longer lower limbs, proportionally similar to modern humans, and the expansion of skulls featuring the cranial capacity of now 900 to 1200 cc's. That's believed to support a well-developed brain to facilitate intellectual behaviors such as speech, using fire, creating sophisticated tools, and maintaining social cooperation and interaction in groups. Homo heidelbergensis is going to appear 700,000 to 200,000 years ago. These are known as the archaic human because they're believed that they have represented the descendant of Homo erectus that diverged in to give rise to modern humans, Homo sapiens. Their initial discovery was in 1907 near Heidelberg, Germany. Fossils revealed that intermediate features between Homo erectus, which was a broad face, and modern humans, with a cranial capacity of around 1200 cc's. This species is going to signify the last common ancestor of Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis. Next, we're going into the Neanderthals. These appeared 400,000 to 40,000 years ago. They're considered close, well-known relatives of Homo sapiens and believed to have diverged from the Homo heidelbergensis. The first fossils, like a skull fragment and partial skeleton, was discovered in Germany in 1856. Distinct features of the fossils include an oval-shaped skull with a low receding forehead and prominent brow ridges with thick, heavy bones. Additional characteristics are going to include large cranial capacity of now 1400 cc's, fully upright bipedalism, skillful hunters of big game, so example bears, deer, wild boar, and reindeer, controlled and used fire for cooking and warmth. They constructed sophisticated tools and weapons comprised of wood and stone, and demonstrated an advanced social structure. They wore clothing and jewelry, and recognized high-ranking members with special, ornate burials, so we find flowers, tools, and other artifacts with these burials. They have an abrupt disappearance, which remains a mystery, but competition for resources with the early Homo sapiens and interbreeding between the populations is going to be the speculated reason. Homo sapiens are going to appear around 200,000 years ago, and they're still here today. That's us. They're sole surviving lineage of the Homo heidelbergensis. Early representatives of this species are going to be characterized by robust skulls and skeletons. Evolution of recognizable anatomical features in modern humans, such as a flat forehead, absent to small brow ridges, prominent chin, less heavily developed jaw, smaller teeth, and gracile skeleton, are going to become definitive within the past 100,000 years. So we'll have a more graceful, more stream-like skeleton. Modern human brains are going to have a capacity of now 1300 cc's. This is going to be a major evolutionary innovation that is truly going to differentiate the Homo sapiens from their closest relatives. Most current hypothesis regarding the evolution of the modern human brain is going to be what's called the social brain hypothesis. That's where our brain has evolved for central development of sophisticated languages. We have many different languages, abstract thoughts, symbolic expression, complex societal networks, and advanced cultural traits. So all of these are going to give rise to our larger brains and to our culture and society. So paleoanthropologists are going to have proposed three hypothetical models to explain the origin of modern humans. The first one's going to be called the replacement model. It's first established by German paleoanthropologist Breuer in 1984, fully articulated by British paleoanthropologist Stringer and Andrews in 1988, and it's going to outline an African origin of Homo sapiens and a continental migration that resulted in a replacement of the archaic human. And so we often learn about this in schools today, about the Great Migration. Multi-regional continuity model is going to be proposed in 1984 by American paleoanthropologist Wolkoff and Chinese paleoanthropologist Wu, and Australian paleoanthropologist Thorne. These are going to correlate with the evolution of modern humans to interbreeding between the continental Homo erectus populations after the ancestral populations migrated out of Africa. So we see how they migrate out of Africa into Europe and into Asia, then they come back, then they keep going in and out of these different populations. So that's what that diagram is showing. Now the third is going to be called the assimilation model. That's proposed by American paleoanthropologist Smith in 1989. It suggests an African origin of Homo sapiens that are interbreeding between pre-existing hominin populations. So it just shows how it goes straight from Africa and it's splitting off going into these other populations or other areas such as Europe and Asia. So that's going to finish us up for our primates and humans. I'll see you back with our next unit, which is going to be on human anatomy. That's one of my favorites, so look forward to seeing you.